The Rufus Project would like to advise the following podcast contains spoilers for Zoolander 2 from 2016. If you do not wish to have this movie spoiled, please watch it before listening to the following podcast. Is it a really ridiculously good-looking sequel, or does it fail at the first left turn? We watched Zoolander 2 from 2016 to see if we could redeem it. Were we successful? Find out after the theme.
Is it too good to be bad? So bad it's good. What's this movie? Do you think we should? It's got bad dialogue, dodgy creatures, but we want to know what the redeeming features. Boy? Oh boy.
Hello and welcome to the Rufus Project podcast, this time checking out Zoolander 2 from 2016. My name is Trevor Holland, I am the suggester of this movie this time around, and I am joined by my good friend and co-host...
Christian Fletcher, the, I suppose, second watcher of the movie, I suppose you could introduce me as.
That works. All-around awesome guy also works.
Oh, yeah. So Trevor suggested this movie, and I'm glad to be back to tackle another one.
Other We just keep watching these movies, no matter what it's doing to our psyche.
And just when we think we've watched them all, a whole other 100 will present itself to us. So, yeah, we've got many more to go.
It is a bottomless pit, let's face it.
Definitely.
Anyway, so moving on to Zoolander 2. If you have not seen this movie, I do have a synopsis here for you. Derek and Hansel are lured into modelling again in Rome, where they find themselves a target of a sinister conspiracy.
Bum, bum, bum. I suppose that sums up in a nutshell, but yeah, as we always say, there's many other plot turns you can take with these summaries, but yeah, that works. A very much I don't know if I read it somewhere, very much a spy spoof Bond. A Bond spoof, I suppose, in the fashion world would be the way I'd sum it up.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I know we'll get to it, but certainly, yeah, it's not just a take on male modelling with conspiracy in the background. It certainly does go a bit more spy thriller when compared to the first movie. I will lay all my cards on the table now and say that I am a huge fan of the 2001 original. It is never going to feature on this podcast as far as I'm concerned.
I will never suggest it.
And yes, I will keep my thoughts for the 15-year later sequel to myself just for now.
And I'm putting myself to shame to say that I've probably only seen the movie once or twice. I will say twice. Doesn't sound as bad. But yeah, so I'm probably on the other end of the spectrum. I had forgotten pretty much, aside from David Bowie's appearance and Hansel and Derek Zoolander, I hadn't really remembered anything about the rest of the movie. So I'll say I'm going in blind with the sequel.
Oh, there you go. Some of the jokes may have actually been fresh for you. Oops,
yeah.
Probably shouldn't have given that away. Anyway.
I still laughed, but that's giving something away too.
Oh dear. Okay, well, before we talk too much about the movie, we've just got to tick off a couple of boxes, I suppose you could say. First of all, we'll have a look at the awards that Zoolander 2 was nominated and won. So going through, looking at a few things, it did win the Golden Trailer Award for the Best Voiceover TV Spot and was nominated for the Best Comedy TV Spot for the trailer. The Hollywood Makeup Artist and Stylist Guild Awards. It was nominated for an Artisan Award for Best Contemporary Makeup and Best Contemporary Hairstyling. It was nominated for the Kids' Choice Award for Favourite Villain by Will Ferrell and for BFFs, Best Friends Forever, for Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson. Now, moving on to other awards, the Golden Schmoes Award awarded it its Worst Movie of the Year. The Hawaii Films Critics Society awarded it the worst film of the year, where it tied with 50 Shades of Black. And our good friends at the Razzies, it was nominated for Worst Picture, Worst Actor for Ben Stiller, Worst Supporting Actor for Will Ferrell and Owen Wilson, Worst Screen Combo for Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson, Worst Director for Ben Stiller, and Worst Prequel, Remake, Ripoff or Sequel. And it did win a Razzie for Worst Supporting Actress for Kristen Wiig.
I can't believe it was nominated for so many.
Absolutely. So there are a few other bits and pieces. Oh, actually, no, I do need to add the Woman Film Critics Circle Awards. It was nominated for Worst Female Images in a Movie and Worst Male Images in a Movie.
Well, at least you could say it's, I don't know, equal opportunity or equal offence. I don't know what the word is.
But yeah, there was quite a few more in there, but they're probably the most notable in the list.
I think the one that shocked me was, I think the kids, what was it, the kids award for best villain or whatever. I'm like, oh, this isn't really a movie for kids, but anyway.
Yeah, questionable. Like the Kids' Choice Awards really should have been featured Zoolander 2, but again, I'm sure we'll go into that a bit further as we go.
Definitely.
Now, moving on to our turkey trivia, where we talk turkey about the movie and trivia. It's all on the title. This is rated 4.7 out of 10 on IMDb. It had a budget of $50 million, and the global box office was $56 million.
That really surprised me when I read it, because I considered the whole, the drawing power of being a sequel and Zoolander 1. I suppose I don't remember Zoolander 1 when it first came out, but I don't know if it's always kind of been a cult movie or a mainstream film, but I thought it would have had more of an audience to get more of a box office than that. Yeah,
I mean, I did feel that, as intrigued as I was by a sequel to the original Zoolander, I did feel that 15 years later seemed a bit long in the tooth for the gag, so it didn't stop me going to see it, of course. Yeah. But yeah, it's questionable for a film like Zoolander, which really was of its time. It featured heavily with VH1, if anybody remembers that, and all these artists and actors and singers on the catwalk and everything like that. It was very much a turn of the century movie, if you remember the 90s going into 2000. So yeah, like I said, the time frame really was questionable.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times too, when I see a movie coming out with that sort of delay, I go, ooh, is this obviously every movie is a moneymaker thing, or an attempt to make money, but you think, oh, this is a cash cow sort of thing. But from what I read, it was in development for a few years, but not too long. I think I read sort of 2011 they'd been talking about it, but I'm sure it had been thrown around before then. But but I actually think, Trevor, I'd like to use what you said a bit later on, using all those people that are famous in fashion and all these music artists. I think that hits the nail on the head with what the second one took from the first one. And I think we're going to talk about it more, but what we're going to see a lot more of is the fact that it's very much a cameo-driven film, let's just say.
Yes, quite a few familiar faces. Now, I haven't bothered listing the cameos in the trivia, because we'll just mention a few of them as we go along, the more notable ones. But I do have some trivia here. Now, the announcement for the movie came from a fashion show where Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson turned up and walked down the runway in character as Derek and Hansel. He's so hot right now.
And what a perfect way to launch it. I think that seems quite appropriate.
Now, both Zoolander films feature villainous fashion designers named after minor characters from Star Trek. Jacobim Magatu was named after a gorilla-like creature that appeared in Season 2, Episode 19, A Private Little War, while Alexander Atos was named after the librarian from Season 3, Episode 23, All Our Yesterdays.
Oh, wow.
Yes! Deep cuts.
Yeah, didn't even know this stuff.
And speaking of deep cuts, when Hansel and Zoolander are humiliated on stage at the start of the movie, the outfit they are wearing are the same as Mork from Ork's spacesuit on Mork and Mindy, and in the next scene, a character does use Mork's catchphrase "Shazbutt." This was because Mork, as we know, well, as some people may know, was played by Robin Williams back in his early days, who also starred with Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson in the Night at the Museum movies, and died a short time before this movie was filmed. So that's basically their little shout-out and tribute to Robin Williams.
It's really interesting you say that, because, yeah, as soon as they came out in that outfit, I'm like, I know that from somewhere, that outfit. There you go.
So yeah, that was again a nice little
interesting
nice little
touch without sort of
there,
ramming it down people's throats. I like kind of tributes like that. So
yeah, well, considering the character that has Shazbutt is pretty much someone who just uses old catchphrases to be cool, which I'm sure we will talk about in length. It kind of fits in with his character as well. So it was nice subtle tribute there. So. Again, before we talk too much more about the movie, we can't help ourselves sometimes, can we?
Definitely not. we can't segmentise.
No. We need to set our baseline, Kristian. We need to know what we're working from.
Oh, gosh, yes.
We have to do it. So I have found a review from our good friends at Amazon, which gives us the lower end of the spectrum, shall we say, when it comes to thoughts on this movie. The title of this review is, if you don't find yourself hysterically laughing in the first 10 minutes, don't waste your time with the rest. Went in with extremely low expectations and was still let down. I understand that the humour is supposed to be silly, in air quotes, but even then there needs to be at least some sort of essence to the jokes. If you're the type of person who can laugh hysterically for 10 minutes when someone says the word poop, you might be able to find some humour in this movie. But for the average person, it's just too empty. The story itself is uninteresting, the humour is not there, and the acting is horrible. I believe it's supposed to be, but none of the actors push the envelope enough for that to be effective. 1 star.
Whoa, okay. Even though, anyway, it hits the nail on the head with a lot of stuff that probably is supposed to be taken as... Yeah, anyway, I don't want to say too much.
That's all good. But like I said, we go from there to see if we can go up from there, sideways, or even further down. It's always a bit of a journey when it comes to this podcast.
We shall see.
For this 101-minute movie, by the way, I did watch the Magnum edition. It still, wasn't too long of a running time, which is always a nice start, as you know.
Oh, definitely.
But as we mentioned before, it was also a very, very spy thriller with a very dramatic opening.
Oh, I know. And I must have been, I'm sorry to always say it, but I was excited about the Paramount logo, even opening something. I don't know. I think we might have seen a lot of movies that had really bad studios presenting them, so it's good to see sort of something of class. But yeah, I know what you mean. Go straight into that spy, where I don't know if it happened per se in the first, the whole text on the screen, and you're sort of given a time and a place and that sort of thing. And yeah, lures you in pretty much straight away, which is what I like. Quick and punchy.
Yeah, speaking of quick and punchy, where we find out the shadowy figure being chased through the streets is Justin Bieber, who then probably kills someone.
Oh, the first of many cameos, many cameos. So they didn't waste any time establishing one of those. Sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, for Justin Bieber, for his cameo, I mean, for what he does and what he goes through, it's just like, okay, so you are going to have Justin Bieber snap someone's neck, basically, in the first 2 minutes of this film, before he turns up in front of Sting's house, complete with a bust of Sting above the door for no particular reason, and he gets gratuitously gunned down.
Oh, and then just to still be able to rise and put his hand out. I suppose it's probably put his hand out and grab his phone. I was going to say it's saying something probably about this modern generation. Even in moments like that, you'll still have a time to be able to post a status update.
Yeah, and take the time to find the perfect Instagram filter for the post as well.
And even choose one and then go, nah, that's not good enough.
Yeah. But, I mean, I can't help but feeling that they actually made his death extra graphic just to appeal to, let's face it, the large amount of people that don't like Justin Bieber.
Well, that's the first thing I thought. I'm like, well, as soon as they're seeing him shot, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience going, "This is probably my dream." Not that I'm condoning violence, but you know what I mean. So,
Yeah,
but I do remember something similar. I remember Austin Powers did it with Britney Spears. I think it was in Goldmember or one of the films where she explodes at the start. So it was very reminiscent of that. And it's good that the celebrity is a good sport about it, but it all comes down to how it's edited, I suppose.
Pretty much so. You know, Justin Bieber was doing it for the haters. Yeah. There you go. Is that something he would say? This goes out to my haters, yo.
I'm just in Zoolander. I'm just in Zoolander 2. That's all I care about. Yeah, not knowing exactly what his character was going to go through.
I'm pretty sure most of these guys signed off before they appeared on what their cameos would do. But yeah, I mean, and when it sort of like cuts to Interpol's fashion division, lovely, and they're going through and they're showing all the newspaper headlines of all the artists who had died, complete with let's just say Justin Bieber pulls a certain familiar looking expression for those that know the first movie, and they cut to all these newspaper clippings on the screen. It's got Madonna and Bruce Springsteen and who else was there? Just a whole pile. All there, all putting the same face as they die, and they're going, there must be something in there. Penelope Cruz turns up and you know, makes the connection that they need to find Derek Zoolander, who disappeared. Oh no!
And then we've got to have that whole establishing. I don't know if it was just me, but you kind of just wanted to get into the next section. But we're finding out that he's pretty much living as he words it, hermit crab, because we find out that I think this is hilarious how he builds that monument with the giant book on it, but he uses the actual materials that were used for the model, so it's made out of popsicle sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And then doesn't it kill his wife?
Yeah. That's right. His wife gets crushed by the giant book from the Derek Zoolander Institute for Kids Who Can't Read Good and Do Other Stuff Too. Again, I have seen the first movie so many times. This is ingrained in my brain. I can't help it.
Oh, well, that's why I'm going to need you along the way. I'm sure there's a lot of gags that probably went over my head. But, you know, and that's the thing. I think it'd be silly any further past this movie. Yeah, you know what you're getting in for now. And the one thing I really appreciate is, as we said, it gets straight into it. I love even how all those news stories are happening over the top of the credits. You don't even really notice they're happening. So it's it's opening up quite exciting. And at this stage, I still wasn't feeling bad that I had forgotten the first movie, because it was essentially giving us a recap, you know, at least in between in the 15 years. Yeah, that those like various bits of news footage and stuff like that. It was a nice way to fill in the gap without actually, you know, physically having a character go, well, this is what happened since last time, or, you know, or our favourite thing, the scrolling text exposition. I hate them. I can't read fast enough.
I know. But again, talking about gags and things from the first movie, it was nice to see that the New Jersey gag carried over, because we cut to Derek Zoolander's house on this icy, snowy mountain, and it says "Extreme Northern New Jersey," which I don't want to keep harking back to the first movie.
No, we have to in some situations.
Yeah, well, when Derek Zoolander goes home, he goes home to a mining town. He comes over this hill, this dirt road with a giant mining truck coming up behind him, and the thing says it's Eastern New Jersey.
Oh, there you go. Another one for the fans of the first one. So,
yes, indeed. There's let's just I'll save time now and just say there are many jokes which are a carryover from the first movie, and there are many jokes which I may mention which are basically lifted wholesale from the first movie.
And hey, it still works for me because I was laughing through a lot of this stuff anyway, you know, and not being familiar with the first one, and I assume Billy Zane appearing was just another cameo, or was that a reference to the first movie?
Well, as we know, as fans of the first Zoolander knows, you've got to listen to Billy Zane. He's a cool dude.
And as we find out later, they've already got the shirts made up about, I've got to call Billy Zane. But he pretty much arrives with the Netflix for him and pretty much the the letter or whatever, telling him that he has to come back, or details about what's happened. Sorry, the
box with the
hologram.
hologram.
That's it,
Yes,
letter. The hologram's a bit more high tech.
Inviting him to the room. Sorry, I don't agree with the thing earlier of Kristen Wiig being the worst actor, but again, I'm jumping ahead and probably already giving much away.
Oh yeah, it is giving a bit. Yeah, no, don't worry, Trevor, because I'm a bit of a Kristen Wiig fan, and I think she always, I think she, went in balls to the wall, probably wrong gender there, but anyway.
Yeah.
And,
look, it's not like we need to recap the plot because, that's what this movie is for. But, I mean, I think her character is obviously meant to be Botoxed to near paralysis. So, like, her mouth barely moves when she talks.
She almost comes in on like a hoverboard.
Yeah, and she floats. She literally floats.
No feeling in her legs.
I know, it's just such a well put together take on someone who's just doing everything to try to stay young, and it's not working. Huge puff lift. Even when she laughs, the mouth just keeps moving even after she finishes laughing, and you're just going, that's gold. That's pure gold.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It got to the point where you kind of, I don't know, I almost welcomed her when she came into a scene. Because you're always going to go, what kind of an insane costume, etc. is she going to wear? Like, especially when later on when she's trying to kiss Will Ferrell and she's got that big globe thing on her face, over her face, and he does end up with pash rash. So I don't know if that's a combination of trying to maneuver his way through the outfit as well.
Yeah, they kind of get there as they basically go at each other completely open mouth, tongues out, screaming into each other's faces. It's such a disturbing kissing scene, but given the characters, it did work very well.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I don't know how big. Like, I'm jumping ahead, but Will Ferrell, I'm assuming, had a bigger role in the first movie than it does in the second. Like, it takes a while for him to turn up, but I know they had to sort of establish a lot of backstory in this one.
Yeah, kind of had to. He was the one scheming in the background. I guess it was meant to be a big reveal when he turned up, even though he was in all the trailers anyway. But yeah, he was the guy plotting the assassination attempt on the Malaysian Prime Minister in the first movie. So, he was the main bad guy.
So they in the meantime, sort of before his appearance, we're giving quite a lot of cameos. There's the controversial appearance of Benedict Cumberbatch. I remember that got a lot of flack when it came out too.
Yeah, I know. Okay, another thing that I think we should address now. So Benedict Cumberbatch plays a character by the name of All, and we have a scene where Derek and Hansel are trying to work out if All is male or female, to which All replies, all is all. And there's even a bit where this little hipster fashion designer called Donatari, who was also responsible for Shazbut and many other things, he was not my favourite.
Oh, yeah.
Basically is using this, All just married himself and stuff like this. And I do remember there was a big thing at the moment thinking, how can they have this character of All in there? What a terrible representation on the way she's treated, or the way that All is treated. But I thought that All was not portrayed particularly poorly. And it was more the fact that Derek Zoolander was so out of touch that he simply couldn't process it. So it was more about Derek not being able to process something which should just be accepted, because everybody else was delighted by All being there.
Yeah. Especially when you find there's a few other parts too where you see that Derek Zoolander is out of touch with things. So yeah, I see what you mean, and I think having the character of All was a good representation of modern, the way things are nowadays, and accepting of all. Yeah, and I think that's a really good viewpoint, the fact that he was just out of touch. And in many ways, it never made All look bad. It always made Derek look like an idiot. Yeah,
well, All comes down and ends up whipping the crap out of Derek, which frankly he deserves, because All... I mean, I may get flack for this. If you disagree with me, that's fine, I'm happy for everyone to have their own opinions, as long as they're not dicks about it. And Derek was the dick. in this particular instance.
Yeah, exactly. But even the person I was watching this with said, "Oh no, I just thought all was supposed to be like a take on Marilyn Manson." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, each to their own." So different interpretations.
I think all. I mean, it may not have been a perfect portrayal of a gender fluid character, but I don't think the actual portrayal of all was overly terrible.
Yeah, and I don't think it was Benedict Cumberbatch, and it wasn't Benedict Cumberbatch. Yeah, Cumberbatch, I almost said. Yeah, I don't think it was him, taking the piss or anything like that. So, which is, a lot of the stuff that you heard. So, and hey, as we saw with a lot of these cameos, they were blink and you miss it anyway. So you're already on to the next gag or waiting for the next thing. So yeah, it was an early thing it was quite welcome and it was a good scene. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Another highlight of the cameos, if we're talking, it's not going to be possible to do this anymore, is it? Every time Hansel's partners, his orgy kept turning up.
Gosh, and what a weird bunch of characters. Or interesting bunch of characters. Not weird, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah. I mean, I believe like one of them was a model. There was a little person, again, which is a bit of a carryover from the first movie. There was a goat. There was all sorts of stuff. And there was sad Kiefer Sutherland. Every time he turned up, it broke my heart.
I know. And
he was just so broken-hearted by the way Hansel was treating the orgy, and they're all pregnant, including Kiefer Sutherland.
I know, it's just I love how they all put the pregnancy test up. But that's the thing I've even got here in my notes. I'm like, Kiefer just seems so upset about the orgy ending or Hansel going off and doing his own thing. But it's so funny because you're so used to Kiefer Sutherland, especially nowadays, being in very serious sort of roles on TV. So we was very much milking that persona. So it worked in quite a humorous way that he was this big actor was just so upset about Owen Wilson not wanting to have an orgy with him anymore.
Yeah, I know. They turn up later and they find him cheating with another orgy, and the look on his face, honestly, it's just like, oh, Kiefer, I want to give you a hug.
He almost going for an Academy Award or something in the wrong type of movie.
I know, it's just because, again, like he's such an action type guy now. To see him like this is just like, oh, Kiefer, it's okay.
And that's the thing that I appreciated about, I was going to say most, but all of these cameos is everyone was such good sports about it. Kind of like what you said earlier. Yeah, they all knew that it was very tongue in cheek, and I liked that it was very much at the expense of the of the actor.
Very, very true. Well, what about speaking of the other orgy? I'm sure you appreciated Susan Sarandon turning up and asking Hansel to come back to the pile.
Yeah, to touch me, I want to be dirty. I laugh at that because I think to myself, I'm like, Susan Sarandon's probably changed her tune in the last sort of 15 years, how she's now sort of very much embracing Rocky Horror. So I was glad she was a good sport, definitely, with that. So I wanted more.
I mean, it was a bit gratuitous and a bit crowbarred in there. Not as bad as some of the other stuff that comes up later, but
I appreciate
it was still
it.
Nice touch. Yeah,
definitely. And that's the thing. Talking about crowbarred, that's what I thought about the whole Katy Perry bit. That was the most randomest bit ever. And especially, jumping ahead again, the amount of, or probably not the amount of, but the times whenever they use the green screen or that sort of stuff. And those were moments like that when you're like, oh God, what's happening now?
Oh God, that. I mean, if anything in this movie made me cringe and just say, why the whole Hansel going, who am I? And then Derek going, who am I? And then Katy Perry singing, who am I? And it cuts back and forth, and then there's Neil deGrasse Tyson going, who? It was honestly just so forced. It's looking. It just brought everything to a crashing halt, and it was just gratuitously saying, we had nothing else for these actors to do, so we're just putting them in here in this scene that means nothing.
I know. It's like
if there's if there's one of the low points of the movie, this is one of the low points.
Yeah, and it did feel so technical. Like surely they could have had Katy Perry, I don't know, as one of the guests at the fashion show, coming up and saying something. I don't know. But then that's the thing, that the cameos come thick and fast in this movie, and I think pretty much, I don't know, obviously it's happened the whole way through, but I've even noticed in my notes here, from Susan Sarandon onwards, it just became Susan Sarandon, the next thing we've got Willie Nelson turning up, and then the Katy Perry bit, it just became, I don't know if it was by the seconds, and then they end up going into the confession, and we find out the whole Sting plot. I suppose. But yeah, it just got to the point where, I don't know, the second half or very much the movie was relying so much on cameos that it almost forgot about what it was doing.
Yeah, well, the whole Sting thing is where we find out about how musicians are the closest genetic match to male models, because and the difference between the genes is intelligence and talent. Which was a nice little touch there. But even before that, when Hansel was getting mysterious phone calls from him, and every message was coded using titles of police songs.
Oh, and I even loved when it got to like the least obvious ones, like King of Pain, and I think that's the title of it. That's how much I know about the police. But sort of started to mention the more obscure titles, and I'm like, oh, this is quite clever. And yeah, so when you find out it's actually Sting, it works even better.
and Sting not being at all subtle by saying, "Oh, my dear sweet Hansel, yes, son, what is it? Is there anything you want to ask me?" I feel like they're saying we feel like they've known each other for years. Obviously, setting up the point that Sting is meant to be Hansel's dad, because shortly before that, they had a big thing about how Hansel's big issue was he didn't know who his dad was. And he just goes, "Is there anything you want to ask me, son?" He goes, Yeah. Is it true you can have sex for 10 hours? No comment before mouthing 15. So it was good. Even Sting was taking the mickey out of himself, which I think that was the best cameos, where people were happy to make fun of themselves.
Yeah, and I think that was the one. I think we've sort of hit the nail on the head. The ones where they're having fun and it didn't feel forced. Yeah, like it was worked into the plot, and just not you're here in your day off, stand in front of this green screen and do this. You know. But yeah, like obviously we're jumping all over the place. But I think sort of after, it's okay. After Sting came, what is Will Ferrell's character? Is it Mugatu? Is it?
Yeah, Jacobim Mugatu.
Oh, okay, I did like that.
Who was once the keyboarders for Frankie Goes to Hollywood before he got kicked out, and went on to invent the piano key necktie for those who want a bit of backstory from the first movie.
And I'm also loving the fact that there was the remix of Relax in there as well, I think in the closing credits.
Yeah, Relax again played a very big part in the first movie. So even when they we are jumping over the place. When they go back to the orphanage where Derek Zoolander's son was kept, when they turned up with the headmaster, who happened to be one of the bad guys from the first movie, which they didn't recognise because he was wearing like a composer wig.
Oh, that's right. I know the guy you mean now.
yeah. And they go in there and they work out who it's going to be, because Penelope Cruz just goes, "Derek, relax." Cuts to him. "Don't do it. When you going to go through it?" Bow, bow, bow.
So as you can see, listeners, this is they're very obvious, a lot of the stuff that's happening in this, but it works. God, you just make me want to watch the first movie again now, Trevor.
Well, you should watch the first movie. Everyone should watch the first movie. Regardless of our determination of this movie, the first movie is a true classic.
And I should have probably watched it before I went in with this, but that's all right. I had to come from a different viewpoint. But I did like how they, when he's in prison with Mugatu, and they swap masks, and he managed to get out as Zoolander just with this terrible mask on. Just walks out.
Because all the guards are former male models, basically. But even going in there, the MC Hammer cameo was quite good, because he'd been arrested for fashion crimes, the fashion crime of Hammer Pants. Yeah. And then you had John Malkovich playing this, apparently the designer of, it was like a custom tag jacket or something like that. And he was almost playing like a Hannibal Lecter type character.
Yeah, it looked like that.
Talking about, fashion should be stylish. Being quite, it's like and even as Zoolander goes in to see Mugatu, who's chained up in this massive, great big straight jacket, you can still hear him yelling to MC Hammer, "Hammer pants are not fashion." It's like, yeah.
And it is good that as I said, that he doesn't turn up for quite a while. So it is good that his entrance is kind of cool. Like they've got that, him coming into and I do love the whole rip off of the outfit, and you find out that he's just got his little jumpsuit on underneath.
Yeah, yeah. The walking out, and he's this big, burly, tattooed, muscular man in a pair of speedos, and it's basically just it's a bodysuit.
Yeah, and back to
I don't know. I don't know why the prison needed to be a giant thimble, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's just. I mean,
well, if that's lost on you, it obviously isn't a reference to the first movie.
I mean, obviously, it's fine as a visual because it's a fashion prison, but it still is curious as to
a curious choice.
Why. Yeah, I've got nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's just like haha, look, the prison's a thimble.
Maybe they could think of nothing else as well.
Yeah. That's well, it's not as bad as most of Donatari's appearances.
It's interesting you said that, you know, I won't mention him or whatever, you know, but earlier, but I'm like, anytime he came on the scene, I don't know, it sort of brought the pace down or just kind of felt really tacky. I don't know. I don't know, anytime he came on, his scenes just kind of annoyed me and I just wanted them to be over.
Well, I mean, he was obviously meant to be an annoying character. He just goes, you know, who basically just said a stream of contradictory things thrown in with, you know, with references, you know, retro references to way back. You're going, yeah, so retro, man. Yeah, I hate it. I hate you. I hate you all. You're great. Yeah, great. Yeah, what? What? Just to be this, basically the annoying little hipster who Mugato eventually kills and just goes, that's right, I'm psycho, I killed a little hipster.
And I must admit, we were all probably a little bit happy when that happened.
Yeah, I did like his crew when he first turned up. He's introducing his crew. Like, he's not Atari. He's got his friends Coleco, TRS-80, and just all these old gaming and old computer references, which as a retro gaming nerd, I quite appreciate.
Yeah, and you probably would have got a lot more than me. Like, you know, I even just appreciated things like that what was it, something de la Gaga, and just all these, everywhere you looked, even in signage and things like that, there would be all these references, which, it was very much a visual, you know, a kind of a blink and you miss it type thing as well.
They did try to cram a lot in this movie, beyond a lot of repeated jokes. But
thankfully, it wasn't repeated from the first movie, or just repeated over the course of the second one.
Well, I mean, some of the ongoing jokes of just Derek saying things slightly incorrectly got a bit old, a bit fast.
Well, the part that sort of annoyed me, and it wasn't a huge part about it, but whenever they mentioned Derek Jr. about being fat and all that kind of stuff, a lot of those sort of gags became very obvious, and you just kind of became, okay. Obviously, it's supposed to be a comparison to, you know, like, especially when there's talk about him eating, and they're all like, obviously realize the comparisons about, you know, models not eating much or all that sort of, those sort of, I suppose I can say gags, but, you know, the whole jokes about, models eating too much and things like that. But, after a while, you kind of got a bit sort of over that sort of stuff, and whenever it stopped and did things like that.
Yeah. I mean, again, you had the scene where Derek engages in a bit of fat shaming, again to show how out of touch he is, you know, because we needed a repeat of that after all.
Yeah, well, I suppose you could have, like we said earlier, you can sort of see, he's out of touch, but then later it happens again when Mugatu has him in that very Willy Wonka-esque room with all the, like, that lard that comes out of that pig and things like that. Like, yeah, literally, like, cramming that, I suppose, innuendo down your throat.
Yeah, I think what they were trying to do is that was like their take on trying to repeat the hypnosis sequence from the first Zoolander, where he dresses up as, "Hey, I'm Little Orphan Cletus," and tries and hypnotizes Derek about why child labor is good for the fashion industry, and is, you know, quite surreal and bizarre, and so him turning up as a happy clown. And being all enthusiastic about the all-you-can-eat spaghetti bar and the lard pig, it was better in the first movie. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I probably should have watched the first movie, and I probably would have got that a lot more.
Yeah. So a fan of the first movie will realise that there is a lot of stuff that they repeat with only minimal adjustment. One thing that was, I think, a good repeat was when they decided to show an ad featuring Derek Zoolander when they're working out what the bad guys are after, being the Fountain of Youth. And they cut to the ad with Derek Zoolander as a giant cow.
Oh, that's right. And it ends up getting milked.
Campbell.
And how's that time with the first movie? Does he...
There's a bit where he's watching TV with his estranged father, and it's one where he's basically a mermaid is going, "Water is the essence of moisture," and stuff like that. And the whole thing is saying that he's not a mermaid, he's a merman, a merman.
But yeah,
so again, a parallel.
But I love
this one worked.
Love it after they've watched the ad. It's like, oh yeah, still holds up pretty well. Yeah,
yeah. To find out that it wasn't blue steel that everyone thought it was. It was a completely different look.
Aquavite, not
Aquavita. Yes.
It. Oh gosh, I remembered that. We didn't even have it written down.
But yeah, like so every time it cracks me up when Naomi Campbell walks away at the end of the ad and he's there reaching after her and just goes, moo. I lost it again.
His version of a sexy model moo, anyway.
Yes.
And I appreciate.
And plus, the fact that Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson are meant to be two of the hottest male models in the world. That's a joke that just keeps on giving.
Oh yeah, I even love when they first get pumped out into that machine, and they got old and lame written on it, but Ben Stiller just goes "Lame."
Yep.
Oh, it's
before
classic.
Being covered in prunes.
Yeah, very random, but
yeah.
But I think a lot of things in this movie are, and that's the thing. Like you don't stop to think about it before the next thing's sort of thrown at you. But I don't know, like for an hour and 40 movie, not saying it lagged or anything, but I did feel that sort of by the last 20 minutes when it was getting quite climactic and we were going to find out what was going to happen about Derek Jr.'s kidnapping, it's sort of not dragged, but you kind of wanted it to round up a bit.
Yeah. I mean, once they finally put everything in place and you realise that the Fountain of Youth is apparently the blood from the still beating heart from Derek Jr. after we go through an extended sequence about the Garden of Eden containing Adam and Eve and Steve being the first male model. As Sting explains to us, actually, I didn't say, when we were saying when they were filling in the gap, there wasn't like gratuitous exposition. Sting gets to supply the gratuitous exposition about how all the singers of the world are actually the guardians of the Fountain of Youth, being the ultimate descendant of Steve from the Garden of Eden, in amongst a few bathhouse gags.
It might sound heavy, listeners, but it's not as heavy, is it?
No, it's not very heavy at all.
And then we've got because that's right, they end up going into that, they've got the fashion, what is it, the launch party or whatever, and they end up, how does he end up getting he ends up getting down into the basement where all the fashion icons are as well. And I was thinking, God, how do they get so many fashion icons to be a part of this movie? I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, and they were the actual people underneath the Incredible.
That's it, the Incredible. And
I like it, and they even had the thing where they basically, Bagato calls them all idiots for believing the whole legend of Steve, and they're just being so catty with each other, to the point where one of the female designers just goes, "Don't talk to me like that. I'll have you killed." Goes, yeah, I'll punch you in the face. He's going, this is great. These people are just perfectly happy to make absolute fools of themselves for this movie. And that is probably one of the most impressive things.
Yeah, the fact and to being the fact that it is such a spoof, essentially, of the fashion industry as well. Yeah, to have them in it almost puts the icing on the cake. It's almost meant to be. But I know the lady with the bobbed hair and and the glasses, she's Anna Wintour or whatever. I think she's the one that they based The Devil Wears Prada off. So she's quite a huge fashion icon. Yeah, to have them in there, just hopefully, playing up their bitchy selves, it just it works quite well. And like Tommy Hilfiger, shut up or whatever,
Yeah, Tommy Hilfiger, yeah. Buy Tommy Hilfiger, support child labour. Yeah, shut up. And they were obviously all signed off on it.
Yeah, I know, but it works so well. Yeah. I think when, as I've found with most sort of tongue-in-cheek sort of stuff, as long as everyone's in on the joke, it works, I think.
Yeah.
Having a bit of fun with it.
Yeah, even though there's a whole scene with Derek Jr. attached to a sacrificial table and Mugatu about to sacrifice him, did just keep going on, and every time somebody turned up, a bit of action happened, followed by just a lot more snarky dialogue.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, some of it was funny, but it certainly, for a movie which had been quite fast-paced up to this point, it does sort of like, in this climactic scene, does get stretched a little thin.
Oh, and that's sort of what I was saying. Like, I don't know if it would hurt, because I had actually seen the movie once before when it first came out. I think I watched it on DVD late one night. But so I did remember sort of, what was going to happen. But as I say, yeah, I did feel by this sort of point in the movie, I'm like, hey, come on, get into it. It just felt like they wanted to throw even more cameos in there to try and keep it going. But and then I did have to laugh when Kristen Wiig turns back up and ends up. We find out, it's funny because as they start to rip her face, I'm like, I knew there'd be some big reveal. And I love how she's Mila Jovovich.
Yeah, Mila Jovovich coming back as her original character from the first movie, and this is the point where I think that it does kind of cross the line into being offensive, because I mean, in the first one we have a call out of, look, they're breakdance fighting between Hansel and the evil DJ. This time you've got Penelope Cruz and Mila Jovovich fighting, and Mugatu yells out, look, they're sexy fighting, and just the leering from the watching audience, I found that worse than the whole thing with All. Yeah. It was like, really? And it even goes to Tommy Hilfiger going, Tommy likey, and you're going, that's... Yeah, the joke's fine. I could handle, you got Penelope Cruz and Mila Jovovich, doing almost fully clothed, soft core style fighting, which would have been fine as a joke in itself. But yeah, just the leering
and
that
added
came
comments
around it was just like a bit too much, guys. Sorry.
Whereas the first thing that came into my mind was, oh my God, Milla's back. She's like a Rufus Project regular. We haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to touch the next Resident Evil movie until next year. So there you go.
But it felt like a familiar face, let's just say.
Yeah, well, we got Billy Zane. He's
another one
face,
too. Yeah.
Who turns up? I mean, given all the cameos, I'm surprised
yeah, I suppose all of them probably have something. So. But yeah, I love how we finally get the reveal of I'm your actual father, Hansel, and as you said earlier, even though we were sort of pretty much spelt it out.
Yeah, and then we discover that the legend was real, and that the male models and the rock stars have the fire in the face, as they all pull various twisted faces as their looks or whatever, and to stop a bomb that Mugatu was trying to drop into a pool of lava from blowing everybody up. Including Mugatu's sidekicks, who would have also been blown up, but didn't seem too concerned about that.
Oh, yeah, no, I wasn't worrying about that. But I was more concerned about the fact that at the very end, after it all happened, he's just... they're like, oh my God, lava pool party. And I assume, is that a reference to the first movie? Did they jump into a pool?
I mean, they have a gasoline fight in the first movie, which kills all of Derek's friends.
But I love that lava pool party. You just see the screenshot, pretty much the end of the movie. But then we go into the final credits with the, after 6 months of intensive care burns,
Yeah. Oh, we get some more sad Kiefer though, because he turns out that he busted when he busted. Hansel's telling his orgy that he's ready to be a dad, and then Kiefer just goes, -1. I shouldn't have kicked that door in. And you're going, and oh my God, the look on his face.
I know.
Again, Kiefer, you're breaking my heart.
I know.
It's just, oh, come on, Kiefer.
Maybe he thought this movie could be up for an Academy Award. I don't know.
I don't know, but he certainly gave it all. and then even that, when they're going through the final sequence, and we find out that getting burnt from head to toe in lava actually cured their small facial scars.
I know, what the hell? I know.
and there's a newspaper that comes up saying that the head of the fashion industry have been caught in another human sacrifice scandal. the fact that it was another one was just
know.
like, okay, good, nice.
But it's so typical of those sort of movies now where they have such a big finale and not a big finale, but sort of long finale credits and all this sort of action happening. And I'm like looking at it going, hang on, there's still 10 minutes of this movie, but did they milk it?
Yeah, I mean the whole Zoolander rap remixed over Relax, complete with Mugatu and other characters joining in an extended dance sequence. I think at one point even like the actual rapper of one of the verses turns up and is on screen rapping this verse about Derek and Hansel.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, interesting. I don't know if I like this song,
I know.
but
It's very
kind of a bit, but watching Will Ferrell dance around as Mugatu, that's entertaining.
And I was thinking to myself, and probably the whole, not just in this bit, but the whole part, the whole way through the movie, I'm thinking to myself that this would have been so much fun to watch with a big audience, a packed audience, and that's sort of what these credits are sort of almost designed for, to have that sort of vibe about them, I think, too.
Okay, well, I mean, was there anything else you wanted to mention about the movie?
Aside from the fact that I didn't mean to jump all over the place, but I know it sort of happened that way. But no, I think I've covered everything that I want to say without spoiling too much. But I think people might get a bit of an idea how we think about this movie.
Quite possibly. So, I mean, we could talk more cameos. I mean, because basically this is cameo, joke, scene. As we mentioned, it's a very fast-paced movie, so there's a lot
most of the time it's cameo scene.
yeah. So there's a lot we haven't mentioned, but I don't think we really need to. I think we covered it over well. So that means, Kristian, that we do need to discuss, if there's any mystery left, what we thought of this movie. Now, I did pick it, so Kristian, can you please let us know if you found anything redeemable in this movie?
Okay.
You saying that? And if it's redeemable overall.
I don't know if I've sort of held my cards close to my chest. I don't know if I've been, very mysterious about how I feel about this movie. But, look, I went in completely blind, as I said, like I have seen the first one, but not for a long time, probably since 2001. But the thing that I really appreciated was it's very much, it's of its universe and it's full of pop culture references. I knew that going in, it was going to be full of cameos, and it was very much about that and the whole spoof of the fashion industry and the spy genre, essentially. But the thing that, and that's what I love about it, is it's pretty much essentially an hour 40 in-joke and references to pop culture. So, and I think with the rapid pace that happens, it's almost fear of blink and miss it. So I think that keeps it exciting, except for the ending, which sort of does lag a little bit, especially when we know was quite obvious where we know where it's going. So I could have almost used that time to cram in some more cameos, possibly. I don't know, it might have been a bit of an overload. But I think it would be a movie that wouldn't work, say, 50 years from now, because a lot of the references probably wouldn't make sense, but it's very much a movie of now. And I didn't think I'd enjoy it as much as I did, and would happily watch it again, and have watched it, this is the second time I've seen it. So, Trevor, yeah, I think because it's so harmless and silly in the best possible way, and it's fun. It was I felt fun going into this conversation. I always enjoy our talks, but I knew I was talking about something that was quite a fun movie, and it's harmless. So, except for the bits that probably could be a bit, offensive, I definitely think this movie is redeemable.
There we go. Okay, so we're halfway there. Let's see what I might have to say. I wonder. Look, I mean, seriously, with this movie, it was never going to be easy to follow on from the first one, especially after 15 years, especially with someone who loves the first one so very, very much. And it was good having that news montage there to fill in the gaps. There's no doubt that Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson loved these characters and really they play them just as well in this movie as they did in the original. The rest of the cast certainly did a decent job. I mean, the ones that are meant to be annoying are very annoying. The ones that are meant to be stilted are very stilted. And yeah, Kristen Wiig was sublime in her role as an overly Botox fashion designer. It was nice seeing the return of Evil DJ, and the fact that his character name was Evil Breakdancing DJ was a joy to me. And Mila Jovovich turning up at the end because she is such a great part of the first movie was good. Not so good bits there were quite a few scenes of like really forced cameos just to do nothing else but to up the cameo count. and didn't contribute to anything else. They did rely on some quick cuts back to the first movie to back up a few gags, and there were many jokes that were repeated, and some even pretty much lifted wholesale from the first. Look, it's not as good as the original, but it certainly retains plenty of the spirit and is a very enjoyable movie to watch. So yes, Kristian, this is redeemable.
Yay, we haven't had a unanimous redeemable for a while, so I'm glad. I think this is the perfect movie to pick us out of that slump.
Absolutely. And Kristian, if you want to go back to the first one, I would suggest that at some point we should actually get together in the same place and maybe do a double feature.
Sounds good. And I think you'd be a good person to watch this with. The first one, I mean. And the second one, I suppose.
You'd have to stop me saying the lines as they were being done. Let's put it that way.
All good. I think I could tolerate it.
There we go. We have a redeemable for Zoolander 2 from 2016. Woohoo! We almost don't need our final review because whether we redeem it or not, we do like to finish on a high note and a redeemable note. So I have been back to Amazon to get a review to see us out. The title of this review is Adam and Eve and Steve. This film is a satirical look at the world of high fashion and modern youth culture. It's also a fun film that's full of cameos and stupid twists. I love the first one and I love this one as well. To all the people who rate this film low, grow a sense of humour. How can you hate a movie where, spoiler alert, Justin Bieber dies? 5 stars.
Yeah, big spoiler there. But yeah, no, I'm not that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I thought there'd be I assume there is quite a lot of 5-star reviews around for that movie.
Actually, the 5-star reviews are in the minimum. There's definitely more
really?
1-star reviews than 5-star reviews for
interesting.
Zoolander 2.
Okay.
Yes. Anyway, but as we were saying, people can enjoy watching whatever they watch and dislike whatever they dislike, even if they're wrong.
Definitely.
Awesome. So, we have a redeemable movie. We are on a high, Kristian. Can we keep that going? What are we watching next time? No pressure at all.
I was going to say, you expect to keep that going and I'm the suggester of the next movie? Look, this is a movie that I think is probably criminal. We've never done this. It's probably always one of those movies that's referred to as, like I like to go the angle of sort of the biggest box office bombs of all time. One of those movies that's sort of not controversial, but just lost a lot of money and sort of came and went. Now, I recently went to Universal Studios, and there's still a ride. I won't say a ride, an attraction dedicated to this this movie. And I laugh because in the map, it's like, based on the hit motion picture, and I laugh to myself. I'm like, that was a dud, that movie. But I've never actually seen this movie. Now, Trevor, I will say on the outset, it is 2 hours 15, but
Ooh.
I thought, stuff it. We have to do this movie. I think it's criminal. It's almost ridiculous we haven't done this movie. I think we need to look at the Kevin Costner 1995 movie Waterworld.
Oh my goodness. I have avoided this movie for years because I'm not that much of a Kevin Costner fan. and yeah, all the things I'd heard about it. But you're right. If anything is perfect for this podcast, it's got to be Waterworld.
I just think it's ridiculous we hadn't done it. So, but that's what I thought as I was going to the themed attraction. A whole stunt show dedicated to Waterworld. I'm sitting there going, does anyone realise this was a dud? So maybe we need to see this movie to see if we're being unfair to it.
Fair enough. Well, I've done the lovely thing of man on podcast looks up the internet.
You do it so quickly and seamlessly.
I kind of,
except when we mention it, that sort of takes the seamlessness out of it.
Sometimes I like to lift the curtain to show, the wizard hiding behind the curtain, as in, another movie that we've touched, The Wiz. Anyway, we'll call back. If you want to watch Waterworld before our next podcast, I've brought up a list of where you can watch it in Australia. I'm sure anyone overseas has more options. So it's available to stream on Amazon Prime Video, or you can rent or buy it on Google Play, the Microsoft Store, the PlayStation Store, YouTube, and of course Apple iTunes. So basically It's available on most streaming platforms in Australia and probably even more overseas.
Yeah, so pay and watch it because it might make some money that it didn't make when it first came out. You might contribute to its box office.
Oh, yeah, it'd be interesting if suddenly your friends over at Universal just go, why is there a sudden jump in income from Waterworld in Australia?
You're like, Trevor, our work here is done.
You know, there's like tens of people watching this movie.
Hey, I don't want the studios to start following us because then they'll start whispering in my ear, can you please say that movie's redeemable? I'm like, no, I'm not lying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll wait and see what happens with Waterworld, which actually, sorry, incidentally, just to correct you on that, actually is a Warner Brothers movie. So I don't know what Universal is having the attraction. But anyway, yeah. So Warner Brothers are probably still recovering from that movie. So, but yeah, so yeah, we'll finally tackle that movie that I've avoided all these years too.
There we go. So, Waterworld. Very, very interesting. I'm seeing a few screenshots here and just going, yeah, I'm game. That's all good.
I think it's Mad Max 3 on water. That's how I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking going here.
Oh, there we go. There we go. But not as acclaimed as as Mad Max was when it came back more recently. Okay, so if you have watched Zoolander 2 and you think we were too generous with it, or you think it's the most amazing movie out there and we haven't even come close to saying how good it is, or if you want to check out Waterworld and give us your thoughts before the next podcast, please do. We are super duper easy to contact. You can find the Rufus Project at rufusproject.com, where you can leave comments below this very episode. We're easily findable on both Twitter and Facebook, or you can send us an email to podcast@rufusproject.com. We would love to hear from you. We would love to hear your thoughts. We would love to hear your feedback, and we would love to hear your suggestions. We do have a couple that we have received that I'm trying to find a good time to get to. But we're always open to movies that we may not have considered.
Ooh, and I'm sure there's plenty out there too. Hey, if we're just getting to Waterworld now, there's plenty of other things out there.
Oh, it's such a deep, deep well. Oh.
And we will keep digging.
We will indeed. Now, speaking of digging, some people might like to dig up some good entertainment, and I'm sure Kristen Fletcher Events will be capable of providing some awesome stuff to them. So, Kristen, what do you have coming up?
Oh, look, so much. There's always so much happening. So off the top of my brain, August 2018 is looking quite packed. Got a lot of cult movies like Pink Flamingos, Mulholland Drive, Clerks, The Wedding Singer 20th anniversary. We also have Australia's biggest Madonna party coming back on the 18th of August at the Wickham Hotel in Fortitude Valley. Look, just too much to mention here. So head to christianfletcher.com or visit Kristen Fletcher Events on Facebook.
Absolutely. Now, if you want to know what's happening in the world of the Rufus Project, that Facebook page I mentioned earlier is a good place to go visit to see what we're doing, as well as the Rufus Project podcast. We have the What the History podcast, where myself and my wife Susie get a couple of bizarre bits of history to make you say what the history. That's a lot of fun. It's also a nice short one, so easily listen to on a commute or a morning tea break. It's a good fun listen. We've also got the Rufus Project YouTube channel. I'm afraid things have been a bit chaotic in the Rufus Project studio, i.e. my house, for the past few weeks. So I haven't done too much on that, but there is plenty of stuff coming. And so if you subscribe to the YouTube channel or the Facebook page, you'll certainly get updates. And of course, subscribe to our podcast and share them with everyone you can think of, because frankly, this is a lot of fun.
Definitely. And hey, if you want to go back and look at some of the movies that or listen to some of the movies we've looked at, there's plenty on offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, off that homepage, there's a whole page which I did up fairly recently, where it's all the movie posters with links directly to each podcast where we've discussed it. So we've made it super duper easy for you.
Oh god, and there's been some interesting ones, so there's plenty to choose from.
Every now and then I scroll down that page and just go, how am I still sane?
Yeah, how did we get through that? How did we watch and talk about it for another hour? But as we always say, the chats are always good, even if the movie isn't.
Absolutely. So I think on that note, and while we're still on a high from redeeming Zoolander 2, it's probably a good place to wrap up. So Kristian, thank you so much for indulging me in my my strange fascination with watching oddly rated movies and box office bombs.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me, or sorry for letting me, suggest Waterworld for next time. So hopefully we can possibly keep the redeemable movies going.
Well, I'm going in pretty blind on this one, only by reputation, so we'll see how we go. And we will chat to everyone out there next time. So until then, enjoy watching whatever you enjoy watching, and we will catch you later.
The future. The polar ice caps have melted, and the Earth lies beneath a watery grave. Those who survived have adapted to a new world.
What did you see out there in your 15 lunars?
Such as?
An end? An end to all this water?
You're asking the wrong person.
Pure dirt.
So what's the word? We trading or not?
And the human dream is the search for a mythical place called dry land.
It doesn't exist!
How can you be sure?
Because I sailed farther than most have dreamed. I've never seen it.
This place, this whole way of living, it's ending.
Straight line leading directly to dry land.
Dry land is not just our destination, but it is our destiny!
Universal Pictures presents a world unlike any you have ever seen. Kevin Costner, Dennis Hopper, Gene Triplehorn. Waterworld.
Is it too good to be bad? So bad it's good. What's this movie? Do you think we should? It's got bad dialogue, dodgy creatures, but we want to know what the redeeming features.
Boy, oh boy.
Kristian and Trevor on the case, watching movies from all over the place. I'm BP, says it's bad, but we want to know if there's fun to be had.
Boy, oh boy.
Redeeming features.
Boy, oh boy.
When I say ancient relics, think Hansel and Derek. I'm Hansel, you jealous. I can tell it from facial expressions. You make oceans, I take when you smell it. I'm sorry, Donatari, but Donatella suggested Valentino